Good day, esteemed viewers, listeners, subscribers, and followers of Ascent Radio, and welcome to another interesting and exciting edition of Let's Talk with Ascent Litigation. And I remain your host, Barrister David Njoku Ono. And as usual, we bring to you the juiciest, the most topical of issues in Nigeria, as long as they are legally related, whether they are politics, whether they are economically driven, whether they are sports or entertainment, whatsoever, as long as it has coloration of the law. That is what we discuss here on Ascent Radio, especially in Ascent Litigation. And today we'll be looking at a topical issue, one that is on the front burner politically within the political landscape of Nigeria, and that is the resultant effect, or the sort of questions that have arisen, public questions that have arisen as a result of the appointment of Mrs. Hannatu Musawa as the Minister of Arts, Culture and Creative in the Republic of Nigeria by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And that will drive our discussion on today's lecture, or today's classroom. And the topic for today is the NYSC certificate a condition for appointment as a Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Is NYSC certified as a Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? And by the end of today's classroom, definitely you will be well abreast, or you will be settled with the relevant provisions of the law and what the law says with regarding NYSC certificate and then appointment as a Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So if you are ready, sit tight and let the class begin. Remember, on the 21st of August 2023, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu appointed 45 ministers to help him in pushing his renewed hope agenda as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, some of the names were obscure in the political space because they have not been pronounced in terms of political appointment or holding any political office before now that is of significance, national significance. One of such names is Mrs. Hannatu Musawa, who was appointed and assigned the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Creative Economy. She is a beautiful lady of 43 years old from the northeastern state of Kaduna. Her story about her father being a kola nut seller and how she grew from grass to grace actually resonates with so many Nigerians, and that made so many Nigerians pick interest on her. But as they say in the popular political parlance, that if you don't want your private life to be sung within the public space, don't join politics or don't hold political office. That led several journalists, lawyers, and private individuals to decide to probe into her lifestyle, and then they started investigating her background. And then, barely 7 days after assuming the office as Minister of Arts, Culture and Creative Economy, Mrs. Hannatu Musawa was somewhat submerged in the imbroglio of her not having an NYSC certificate. Now that raised dust. Remember, in 2018, the then Minister of Finance, Mrs. Femi Adeosun, was equally submerged in this type of controversy of her not having an NYSC certificate, which later led to her resigning and being one of the first ministers under the Buhari administration to resign from office. You can equally remember Mr. Shitu, the then Minister of Communication, who equally had issues with his NYSC certificate, and though he didn't resign, but that was a whole lot of political discourse as at then. Now, following this very discovery, Mrs. Hannatu Musawa came up openly and said, yes, in 2001, she was mobilized to serve under the NYSC scheme in Akwa Ibom State. But due to family issues as at then, she had to redeploy herself to Kaduna State, which is her hometown, 5 months into her 12-month NYSC service under the scheme in 2001. But unfortunately, NYSC, the statement coming out from NYSC said that she was never redeployed. and as such didn't have her certificates as at 2001 because she was not under the scheme, no longer covered under the scheme, having left the scheme 5 months rather than completing her 12 months. Now, this has now prompted several questions. Number one of the question is, must an appointee of the president's as minister or any public office for that matter have an NYSC certificate before he or she can assume office? Number two, is Mrs. Hannatu Musawa culpable of having committed any crime for not completing her NYSC service in 2001? And the third question is Ms. Hannatu Musawa eligible for enrollment under the NYSC scheme as at when she got re-enrolled into the scheme in February 2023? Now, let's start with the first question. Do anybody need NYSC certificate before you can be appointed as Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Now, Section 147 of the Constitution provides for the offices of Ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which members are appointed by the virtue of the powers of the President under Section 148 to appoint such ministers and designate them to ministries of his choice. Now, that same Section 147, subsection 5 of the Constitution provides that for you to be eligible to be appointed as a Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, such a person must be qualified to be elected into the House of Representatives in accordance with Section 65 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Now we go back to Section 65. Section 65 now provides for the qualifications before one can be eligible to contest the office or the seat or as a member of the House of Representatives. One of such conditions is that such a person must be a Nigerian citizen. Number two of such condition is that such a person must be up to the age of 25. Number three, such a person must have been educated up to school leaving certificate level. And number four, such a person must have been sponsored by a political party duly registered in Nigeria. Now we come to Ms. Hannatu Musawa. Is she a Nigerian citizen? From her biography, or autobiography I should say, she is from Kaduna State. Her parents are all from Kaduna State and she grew up in Kaduna State. So by virtue of her being born to Nigeria's persons of Nigeria, indigenous of the Nigerian community in Kaduna State, then she is a Nigerian citizen by birth. Number two of the qualification, is she up to the age of 25? According to her profile that she read while doing the ministerial screening, she is 43 years old as of today, and as such, she is above the age of 25 and eminently qualified under that very qualification profile to be elected into the House of Representatives. Number three, does she have or is she educated up to secondary school certificate level? She is a master's degree holder, and as such, that ends the issue of whether she is qualified academically or not, as she is not just a master's degree holder, but she has a degree, not just having a school leaving certificate, but has a degree from a prominent university in Nigeria, ABU Zaria. The fourth and final qualification is that she must have been sponsored by a political party. She is a card-carrying member of the All Progressive Congress, and as such, if she's a member of All Progressive Congress and Nigeria is a member of the All Progressive Congress, and she was appointed under the platform to have been sponsored by the All Progressive Congress as a political party duly registered in Nigeria. Now, having said this cements the issue of whether she is qualified to be appointed as a minister. Now, is the NYSC certificate a condition for her to be appointed? According to Section 65 of the Constitution, is secondary school certificate, and even having a master's degree, then she is eminently qualified within that very cadre. This takes us back to the issue of Ms. Kemi Adeosun, which I said in 2018 she had to resign because of issues of NYSC certificate saga, where she claimed to have it, but in the actual sense, she never had such. Academically qualified up to secondary school certificate level, then you are qualified to be appointed as a Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Having answered this question, we go to the second question, which is Ms. Hayatu Musawa culpable of committing a criminal offense, having not completed her NYSC service in 2001? In answering this question, whether she has a certificate or not, on the 28th of August, rise to under the NYSC scheme to serve at Akwa Ibom State. Five to have been redeployed, but as I said earlier, the director of public communications under the NYSC scheme, Mr. Edward Megawa, stated that it is not in NYSC record that Mrs. Hanatu Musawa was redeployed in 2001 to complete her service here in Kaduna. Now, because of that statement, or based on that, Mrs. Hanatu Musawa now stated that she, in February 2023, which is over 20 years after she left the scheme in 2001. Now, at this point, she was age 43. The question is, as of 2001, when she left the service, was she wrong in doing so? Section 13 of the NYSC Act provides for offences under the Act. Prominent of that offence, which is be a criminal offence, for anyone to leave the service or out. If she had confessed that she left the scheme 5 months into the 12 months on that. Now, the third and final question is Hanatu Musawa eligible to be re-enlisted under the NYSC scheme over 20 years after leaving the scheme? Now, subsection 13, subsection 2, provides for persons who will be exempted from enrolling under the NYSC scheme. Now, if you go back to section 2 of the NYSC Act, it provides that number one of such persons that can be exempted is persons who are above the age of 30. Number two of such persons are persons who have been enrolled under the Nigerian Army or Nigerian Police or any of the Nigerian military for a period of about 9 months. Number three are persons that are employed under the Security Service, Department of Security Service, or the National Security Organization, or the National Intelligence Organization, or the National Defense Intelligence Organization. And finally, persons who have been issued national honors. These are the 4 categories of persons who are exempted under. Now, as at 2023, February to be precise, when she applied to be enlisted under the scheme, Mrs. Hanatu Musawa was 43 years old, as against the provision of the NYSC Act, which says you can no longer be eligible once you are age 30. So, having enlisted or decided to enlist herself under age 43, Ms. Hanatu Musawa is no longer eligible to be enrolled under the NYSC scheme. For anybody knowing that he or she is not qualified to be enlisted under the scheme, to so enlist or attempt to be enlisted under the scheme, and anybody who does that, such offence is punishable with 2 years imprisonment or a fine of 4,000 naira, or both fine and 2 years imprisonment. Now, in conclusion, we believe that the Ministry of Justice, headed by our belief that reasoning will prevail here, and no matter how highly placed anyone is, no one is above the law. This is where we draw the curtain on today's class. I will believe you've been well abreast and educated on whether NYSC certificate is needed to be appointed as Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and whether Mrs. Hanatu Musawa is fit and proper to be appointed as Minister as of today, having several criminal offences as allegedly committed by her by enlisting under the scheme or absconding from the scheme as of 2001. As usual, we will always want to get your feedbacks, comments, and suggestions. Please do well to do this at the comment section of whatever streaming platform you are watching or listening to us. And